Welcome everyone, I'm Axel and I'm joined here with the Team Ninja Community Manager, Master.
Oh
And
man, thank you for having me.
yeah, we've been trying to make this happen for a while. It's been awkward. We actually were supposed to be doing this a few years ago, but then I got sick all of a
Yeah,
sudden. So yeah, here we are.
yeah, dude.
This is just gonna be about Master and what he does with Team Ninja, his experience, and I think he's a very interesting guy. And yeah, I just thought it would be like a really cool interview to have. So to start, Master, tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been playing video games my entire life, just like m many of you that are probably watching this right now. And started very young with the Nintendo and Sega Genesis and stuff like that. And of course, the arcade era. So I was around the arcades and stuff like that. Um, as I grew older, I ended up becoming a big fan of Team Ninja games or Tecmo games, even as a child with Ninja Gaiden, obviously, because Ninja Gaiden is a very old franchise. But even as growing up, that are alive, and eventually Ninja Gaiden came out, so I was a big fan of those games. Coincidentally, I ended up using Ryu Hayabusa in Dead or Alive, which is obviously the main protagonist for Ninja Gaiden. And the funny thing is, even when I picked him originally, I didn't even know it was him because I was so used to knowing him as Ryu rather than Hayabusa, and his name was always shown as Hayabusa in the game. So later on, I found out I was like, oh, it's the same guy. I didn't even know. It just happened to work out that way. So it was very natural, very organic. It wasn't because he had some kind of prior status. Honestly, the reason I even picked him was because he does the Izuna drop, and when I saw the Izuna drop, I was like, "Oh man, that move is amazing! I want to do
Yeah,
that."
it's super iconic. Yeah.
Yeah, super iconic. So I got into it. Was a big fan of those games, and eventually got competitive with Dead or Alive. Ended up becoming a world champion at it. Got some kind of Guinness World Record for the franchise, and then talked with the team. Talked to the old Team Ninja being Itagaki and them, and then talked to new Team Ninja being Hayashi and them. So I talked to old Team Ninja and new Team Ninja, and eventually created a friendship slash relationship with that team, and had an opportunity to step in from the community to be a community manager, and I've been with the team ever since, and have done many games at this point.
Okay, so you said you were very involved in the Dead or Alive community and its competitions, uh, and can you tell us a bit more about the life back then? How was that life of competing in Dead or Alive?
Yeah, it was an interesting time because I didn't even initially when I played the game, I kind of knew I was good at the game because I would play with my friends. But everybody kind of thinks that, right? You play with your friends. You're like, I'm better than most of my friends, So I'm just kind of curious how I would do against, the world essentially. And the world back then, the world was, if you play online, you have a large group of people that you can play against, and you can kind of see where you stand in the leaderboards. And so I said, "Oh man, this new iteration of Dead or Alive at the time was Dead or Alive Ultimate. It's coming out for Xbox and it's gonna have online play." So I was like, "Oh, I gotta try it out now. I gotta get it. I'm just curious. I just want to scratch that itch. How good am I? And I want to see who's out there, what they're doing, and if they're better than me. It just so happened to be that I beat just about everybody." And
Yeah,
there was competitions online, and there was like there's community websites, and people would go to forums. That's like very unusual these days. Forums are not really common these days. Most people probably go to like Reddit or whatnot, but there was forums. There were dedicated forums, and you would go to them, and people would invite you and be like, "Hey, come over here." Everybody kind of comes here, and comes together to talk about strategies and gameplay and whatever for matchmaking as well. So that's kind of how it was back then. And I had no intention to be a competitor. I was just more so curious as to how good I was. And every time I kept winning or every time I placed high, I just wanted to keep playing because I would always feel like, I lost, but I feel like I didn't lose that convincingly. So I felt like I could have won, and then I would come back and either win or come back in a different way or a different game, and would continue to just keep trying. And that was always my questions, like, how good am I? And I just kept doing that over and over and over again. And I guess I ended up becoming one of the best players in the world and ended up participating in esports. So I was in esports. So I would play, I would get paid to play the game at the highest level. You know, that was the expectation. You had to win a lot. So I did that for a little bit. I did a couple of TV episodes about that, and eventually, transitioned to where I am today. Basically.
Uh, like that's definitely something that I cannot relate too much because I don't play that many fighting games at all. Like I don't own any, but I also, every now and then I play with a friend like a random uh, fighting game, and it's definitely very fun. But when you bring that up to the full on competition, yeah, it can be very something. You mentioned
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you mentioned the forums. Actually, like I've seen a lot of stories of the forums when it comes to speedrunning as well, and like it is definitely interesting how different it was back then. Nowadays you have like the Discord and whatnot, but when you want to know how was like the high level, being competitions or in speedrunning or stuff like this back then in the early 2000s or whatnot, and you have to go to the forums, right?
Yeah. That was the way to do it.
Like when you were about to become the Teen Ninjas community manager, master, like how did that happen? Did they approach you? You approach them? Like it just happened naturally? Like you mentioned it more or less how it was. It just eventually just ended up being like that. But how was it?
Yeah. So it was a very natural thing that happened. It was very what do you call it? A very untraditional way on how I became a community manager in the sense of in the professional sense, right? So like um I'm trying to separate the two things. So I was a professional player, right? Playing on Dead or Alive, but in the as a professional in the industry is different, right? So it happened in a way where I was always for the community. So everything I did, even though I was a professional player, I would always do stuff on these forums that I mentioned earlier, and I would say like, oh, here's a tournament, or here's a thing that I'm putting together, or let's gather some people together. I was very community focused, and I would do like tutorials and things of that nature back then when YouTube was barely even a thing. It was like barely becoming. It wasn't even YouTube, to be clear. It was like Google and YouTube were separate things, and then Google bought them. So just to give you an idea how long ago
Yeah.
this was. And so those were one of the things that I would always have as a discussion whenever I would talk to the reps of the team. I would just tell them, hey, this is what I do, and because they would ask you these questions. They would ask you. It's not like I just bring it up. Sometimes they just ask you, like, oh, what do you do, and what is your background? It's like, well, this is what I do. My day to day thing, my day job. But then I do this. I travel to different states and I compete, and I like to do these tutorial videos, and I put these things together for the community so they can improve themselves to gather more people. And that's kind of how it kind of went in that sense, where you know one of the reps was like, okay, cool, that's interesting that you do that, and at some point there was the idea of like, there is this space that we're probably missing in the team. Maybe that we can make that space or create that space and bring someone in that understands the community, that is devoted to the community and what it stands for. And that's kind of how it happened. To give you the short version, that's kind of how it happened. It's like, okay, there's a possibility for something to happen, and one of the reps talked to me, and they were just saying like, there might be a chance for you to get in, and I'll keep you posted if it happens. And either way, I'll let you know. And I never was like, oh, please let me know. I hope. Cross my fingers. I was like, all right, let me know. I was never that guy. I was never the guy that was trying to like pressure them, like, hey, what's going on? What's happening today? You talked to me yesterday. I was never that guy. I would always just be like, okay, let me know, and if it happens, it happens, great, and if it doesn't, oh well. I'm not gonna hold it against the team. I'm not gonna do that. That's that'd be a waste of time. Waste of time and energy. So eventually, after several years, believe it or not, after several years, after that
Um,
initial discussion, then the opportunity really presented itself, and I was like, okay, well, let's do this. Let's see if we can do this. And that's kind of how I jumped into the mix, and I showed them what I would do and what I would bring to the table and what my intentions were and whatnot. And they were kind of in line for the most part. They're like, all right, let's do a little bit of a trial, and then we'll see how it works out long term. You know.
So yeah, it basically was like you were already committed to the community. The Team Ninja was kind of looking into it, and you just fit the right in, right?
Yeah, I was like at the right place at
At
the
the
right
right time.
time
Yeah.
with, I guess, the right amount of credentials. You know, it's like, oh, this guy has a history, and the community respects him, so it just works out for him right now. You know, it was not planned in any way. It just happened to work this way.
What are the main things you do in the role of community manager? Things that maybe people do not know normally.
Yeah, I think the basic role for any community manager for any, I guess, industry or anybody, any game or any yeah, interactive entertainment, I guess, is to see what the community is talking about, see how they're accepting, the game or the latest entry. What are those discussions? Are there like particular bugs or certain issues that really need attention? Also, how do we approach it from a marketing standpoint? Sometimes, there's obviously different people and different stations or areas, that you work with as a team. And sometimes they'll come to me as to like, what do you think will resonate with them? What do you think? And then what I have to say may or may not be taken into consideration depending on what the resources are and what's going on. You know what I'm saying? So I may say like, oh, I think we should have a marathon of like Nioh or something like that, and the grand prize should be like $1 million, right? I can come up with an idea like that, right? And they can be like, okay, you're crazy, but maybe we
But
should do something
maybe
that's like a smaller scale, like maybe we do like a gift card or something like that, something to that degree. But the idea is that that a community manager is giving data to the overall team and communicating with several different people in the team to let them know like, hey, this is what's going on. I think this is what they would like. This is probably good. This is probably bad. It's a lot of that communication. You're essentially the bridge. A community manager is the bridge from community to developer. That's what you're supposed to do. At least that's the way I defined it. It's like you should always be that role, and you should be able to communicate to anyone and everyone as much as possible. Obviously, there's some exceptions sometimes, depending on what the case may be. But I think one of the mistakes that I see, and personally, when I look at social media, because you obviously get on social media and several websites to see what people are talking about, one of the mistakes that I see some community managers do is that they let the best of their emotions, get the best of them essentially, and it becomes kind of like chaotic, which in my opinion is that's not the role of a community manager. The role of a community manager is always to be that bridge. There's always going to be people that are super excited about what's coming up. There's like, oh, I can't wait, I want to know more, and there's going to be some people that are a lot more passionate sometimes, and that's totally okay, because for me, again, I'm cut from the same cloth as you, in the sense of I came from community, so I understand what it's like to be very passionate about something. And to me, it's like, okay, someone's very passionate, they're trying to communicate with me, and they're probably communicating with very passionate words. And so to me, it's like, how do I cut through the noise to get to what they're really trying to talk about? You know what I mean? That's the important part, and that's what I don't want to exclude anybody in. Again, you're that bridge, right? No matter if it's somebody stomping down the bridge or somebody sprinting down the bridge, the whole idea is that people can get through that bridge, and that's what my job is. That's what I try to do best, to try to make sure that, hey, some people are talking about this, that, and the other, and these other people are talking about that. How do we address both things, or how can we do certain things within our capabilities, what we have available.
we've recently seen you take part in a Guinness World Record with the Ninja Gaiden 4 stunt on the helicopter and displayed in a giant screen over Miami. Like, how did that happen? Like, who came up with the idea, and how was the experience in general?
Yeah, that was an interesting meeting. So to give you, I mean, I'm not sure how many details I can give, but to give full credit, the credit goes really to Microsoft and their teams, because they're the ones that published Ninja Gaiden 4. So they put a lot of effort to come up with several different ideas, and sometimes things seem to line up well, or the team agrees with them, and they think it makes a lot of sense to do, and that'll get a lot of attention. And Microsoft is an incredible team to put things together like that. And some of the ideas that you may have heard of or seen are like the katanas. There was katanas forged and then made and shown at Tokyo Game Show, and they had like a T-shirt and a brand to put things together. And they did that like I believe it was like a Comic-Con in New York or whatnot. So there's like a bunch of different activations that Microsoft basically presented and got approved by the team, or the several teams, to make sure that everything was in line and whatnot. And one of the ideas was the helicopter. So there was this idea that we would have a helicopter. We would have two helicopters, actually. We'd have two helicopters, one holding a giant screen, and in the other helicopter where someone's playing the game. That's how it was kind of presented in a nutshell. Somebody's in the helicopter, plays the game, the other one is shown on that screen. It's like, okay. And then we were trying to put it together. It's like, well, how does this make sense? And the idea is that at the very peak of the game, you get to the top of the highest skyscraper in Ninja Gaiden 4. And you fight, the dragon and whatnot, So that's the reference, that you're in the sky at the highest level in the peak of the game. And so that's the idea. That's how the idea came to be. And we were kind of like, okay, that was kind of cool. That's a cool idea. Kind of a crazy idea. And I joke, a lot of people don't know this, but I jokingly said, I'm not sure if you've seen the Hunger Games, but I said I volunteer as tribute. I said jokingly in the meeting. And because I thought it was cool. I thought the idea was cool. So then, like, about, I don't know, I don't even know how long. It was definitely less than a month, maybe like a week or two later. They were like, hey, you want to get in there? You want to go in there and play the game? And I was like, oh wow, like, okay. I was like, yeah, I mean, I'll do it. I'm down to do it. And that's kind of how it came out. To answer your question, that's basically how it turned out to be. But to give you a little extra, when it actually came, we had to do a rehearsal take. So there was actual rehearsal prior to Miami, and we had to go to a different area and location. And I remember being there, and I'm just like, I'm really doing this now, like this is happening, and as I'm thinking that, I'm just like, I'm trying to think positive, right? Like, I'm going to be in this helicopter. I got to make sure this game looks right. I'm doing a different thing. I'm working, it's not just I'm there and, having a good time. I'm trying to make sure that the game is being displayed correctly. I want to make sure that, is the experience worth it? Does this make sense to everybody involved? And then as I'm thinking that, I'm also thinking, if something goes wrong, that's it. There's no continues, there's no respawn. It's a wrap for me, So it's a legitimate stunt, and some people, I'm not afraid of heights or anything like that, but some people are afraid of heights, and I'm hoping that the people I'm surrounded with in this helicopter are not afraid of heights, and they're not gonna spaz out or anything or do anything crazy while I'm up there. So those are legitimate concerns that you have going up there, but I think it was worth it. I think it played out well in the end, because you have a person that has a history with the game and the character, and you also have a rep, so you cover two things already with one person. And then the stunt itself is huge, it's a grand scale type thing. So I think overall it ends up being really cool. The Guinness World Record thing wasn't even in a consideration at the time. It was just a plan to do this thing, and somehow it ended up making sense to have Guinness World Record involved. And they're like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And then we had an artist, a music artist that came. That wasn't initially part of the initial planning, but it all came together like in a way that you wouldn't even have thought of. It was like it just kept getting bigger and bigger. It's like, okay, we're doing the helicopter, now we have a music artist, now we have the Guinness World Record. It just kept stacking more and more, and it came together in a really beautiful way, and I'm glad it came out that way.
Yeah. It definitely was crazy to see. I can only imagine being there. Yeah. The helicopters seem to be like very ingrained in Ninja Gaiden as well, right? Like there's always some helicopter going on, so it feels very very fitting, very fitting.
Yeah, absolutely. I told them that too. One time I was like, even though there's not a helicopter scene in this particular Ninja Gaiden, there always seems to be a helicopter in Ninja Gaiden. Yeah. So it just kind of made sense.
Okay, so since we're talking about Ninja Gaiden 4, and I actually really enjoyed the game, and I'm not very experienced in them, like, not nearly as much with Nioh. But I did enjoy it. It was the one that I enjoyed the most so far. And what are your thoughts on the game?
I think the game is really cool, man. It's like one of the best action games that have come out in the last decade probably, because there's not many action games like that these days. We kept thinking about what are other games that are out like this, and the obvious ones would be like, oh, there's Bayonetta and Devil May Cry and stuff like that. But when you think about those games, you think about like, when's the last one that came out? Was it like 3, 4, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? It's like, it's been a while since a game like that has been out. So I like the fact that we were going against the tradition of like, everybody follows this formula, and we're going back to kind of like the roots. And to that degree, I really appreciate the teams involved for doing that, because this was like, this is what hardcore action is. And it's not an easy game either. Ninja Gaiden has a history of being hard, so it also has that level of difficulty involved as well, for those that really want it. And I think it's a really fun game, and I encourage everyone to at least try it out. I know people that play on Xbox have Game Pass, so if you have Game Pass, it's like a no-brainer. Definitely check it out, see if it's for you, see if you can hang in there and become an Ultimate Ninja. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I still play it to this day. You may not see me on streams lately because I've been so busy, but I still play it in the background.
Yeah, like one of the things that I appreciate a lot about, in general, Team Ninja games, like especially Ninja Gaiden and Nioh series, is how much freedom you have of, like, once you understand what you're doing, like, you can play the game in so many different ways. Like, you can play it very optimally, very flashy, very, like, however you want. And I
Yeah.
enjoy that a lot. Is incredible, honestly.
Yeah. I think what Team Ninja does very well is they have this they have this sense of like direction of how a game should be played, and they set up the canvas, right? They set up the canvas. They're like, we'll set up a canvas in a way so you can become the artist the way you want to be. You can express yourself the way you want to express yourself. And I think that's the beauty of Teen Ninja games and a lot of video games in general. Like, if you have a video game that lets you express yourselves in different ways and doesn't restrict you so much, it becomes more memorable. You have a long play time with it, and that's what I really enjoy about them. They really have the skills and the vision to really lay out the groundwork for you if you stick with it. Some people, like, they're like, oh, it's a little too hard, or it's a little bit confusing doing this or whatnot. But if you stick with it, like, it'll open up and you're like, oh, this is what you can do. And then you realize how much of an artist you become because you're so into it.
Yeah, like I feel like in these games, like, being able to express yourself in so many different ways, it also adds to the replayability of it. Like, it adds a lot of replayability and value. In my case, for Nioh, there's like the challenge runs and speed runs, and there's always something new to try, some kind of new challenge, some kind of different way to play the game. Another route, like a lot of things. Like, I always think of like new things, and in terms of speedrunning, I never think like the route is fully optimized. There's always something that, oh yeah, I could be doing this instead of that. And in the combat aspect of the game is also like, there's always other things that you can do. There's always new combos that you can try. And speaking of speedrunning, I know you messed around with speedruns on the Ninja Gaiden series, and you come from the competitive scene on the fighting games. How would you compare the two? How different are they? And how important it is for a game to allow you to have a good experience, both in competitive aspect in fighting games, for example, or speedrunning in other games?
Well, I think speedrunning and competitions, like head-to-head competitions, are quite different. But I think the uniqueness about speedrunning is, you're fighting you're fighting against yourself, right? You're trying to like make sure that you're performing and executing everything correctly. One of the things I've learned from many people that help me with Ninja Gaiden speedruns is that there's certain things that in some cases you'll have to accept are gonna happen. They're just gonna happen sometimes, and you can't let that deter you from completing your run or from just basically starting over or whatever it is you have to do, or practicing that area more frequently. But I think the biggest things with speedruns is because some speedruns take an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Um, it's a lot of commitment. It's a lot of commitment in the sense that your practice session of doing a run could be just those 2 hours right there alone. That's just one run. You're trying to do multiple runs in a day, so you're committed for a good portion of your day to try to get several runs in, or just to practice a particular area, so that way you don't have issues with it. I think what's exciting about speedruns, or what would be important for speedruns, is that it shows the flexibility within the game. The game can be played at blistering speeds, or just as slow as you want it to be. There's not this sense of like urgency all the time to be like, oh, I have to like finish this by this time or whatever. You don't have to play the game that way, but it allows for it. And I think that's what's really cool, because it allows for you to do those things and enjoy the game at that level, because you basically have mastered a lot of techniques within the game, and now you want to push yourself to see if you're one of the fastest people on the planet. And then the head to head is a little bit different. Head to head is you're outthinking your opponent, and unlike a NPC or a CPU that you're fighting against, just a bot or whatnot, the bot is programmed to do certain things at a certain moment, and it'll always have inhuman like reflexes, because that's what it is. It's not a human. But outthinking someone, there's always this level of error in the air, that someone's going to create a mistake. And the idea is that who is going to have the best reaction to that mistake, and who's going to punish them accordingly by that mistake, And to be able to outthink somebody is such a satisfying feeling. It's really hard to express. And head-to-head competitions is very competitive, and not only in the game itself, but even mentally. Sometimes you're trash talking each other, and sometimes you're talking about certain things about like you shouldn't even be here. You're not even that good or whatever. It's a constant mind game, but it comes with the territory. You know what I mean? That's part of the territory, especially in a fighting game. Is you're literally beating each other up until someone can't move anymore. So there's a lot of psychological things that happen in a head-to-head, but I think both of them, are really cool. Both, rather it be speedrunning or the head-to-head, I think to be able to do either of them in a game is always cool. But I learned a lot through speedrunning. I learned a lot of things on how you guys approach breaking, the game, or finding bugs, or just trying to like, break a barrier that normally you wouldn't break.
I can think of someone who is just waiting in the corner, like to break Nioh 3.
Yeah, yeah. So that's cool, man. It's cool. I think it's always good to see that the game can offer many ways to play the game.
What are your favorite games of all time, whether they are Team Ninja or not? What would you be like your top three, for example?
It's hard to put like top three. I'm gonna name several games, probably not in any specific order, and I'm also probably gonna name some games that I'm not particularly good at, also, just because I thought the concept and the game itself is good, and I enjoyed it even though I was horrible at it. So for sure, Dead or Alive is one of my favorite games. I mean, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for that franchise, if it weren't for that team, if it weren't even for that character. So those are things that go through my mind all the time. So Dead or Alive, I still play to this day. And I enjoy it a lot. No matter which iteration it may be, I'll just hop around different iterations sometimes. So Dead or Alive for sure. Ninja Gaiden is also a no-brainer. Ninja Gaiden, I grew up with Ninja Gaiden. I grew up with that character as well. So Ninja Gaiden is really cool. And I liked all the Ninja Gaidens. All the Ninja Gaidens are great. I think I lean towards like Ninja Gaiden. Well, I lean towards Ninja Gaiden 4 more now these days because of its combat, the way the combat works. But 3 and 4 have really cool combat that I really enjoy. So anybody that's probably watching this that's knows all the Ninja Gaiden games know that when it comes to the 3D ones, 3 and 4 for me combat wise is really really cool. They both have really cool opportunities for combat. But part 1, Ninja Gaiden 1 or Black, is probably my favorite as far as like the way it works, the world inside of it. Other games that I've enjoyed, or series of games, again, no particular order, is like I enjoyed Resident Evil games. I don't play them a whole lot. I don't play them a whole lot, but I have enjoyed Resident Evil games. More so the later versions, like the remakes and whatnot. I feel like it's a little more approachable. It takes care of a lot of the nuance that happened back then. I don't have to worry about tank controls and certain things like that. But I really like it, Resident Evil. Funny enough, I'm playing Resident Evil Zero occasionally right now. I never touched the game, so I'm going through it and I'm kind of enjoying it. But I did like Resident Evil 2 remake and Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 was my first Resident Evil. I was bought by one of my ex-girlfriends a long time ago, and that's what kind of got me into the series. And I just started playing it, and I got hooked into the series. So Resident Evil is a really cool game. One of my all-time favorite. Some people may not even realize what this game is nowadays, but Phantasy Star Online. Phantasy Star Online was one of my favorite games ever. I spent so many hours on that game. It was just ridiculous. Sonic the Hedgehog, the Sonic series. Sonic is one of my favorite games as well. Mario is too, but for some reason Mario is kind of like, whatever. I come or go. But Sonic is, for some reason, its music, its character, it always had this like edgy feel to it. Thought it was really cool. And then more recently, I've liked Baldur's Gate 3. It's not even a game I would normally, not even remotely look at. But for some reason, there was so much hype behind it. I was like, you know what? Kind of looks like a game I would like. So I started playing. I didn't start playing. I've already played Baldur's Gate 3, and I've actually finished the run of the game. But I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was one of the best games I've ever played. Other games that I like that are pretty cool. Or that I think are pretty cool. I started playing Diablo. I've always wanted to play Diablo, but then I played Diablo 4 and eventually beat Diablo 4 and everything. Again, it was always a game that I kind of looked at from afar, and I was like, I'm not sure if I really like that game. But then I was like, you know what? I think I do, and I played it. I enjoyed it. A classic is like Command and Conquer. Command and Conquer and StarCraft. Command and Conquer and StarCraft are both different games. So if I haven't given you the idea already, I'm quite a diverse gamer. I play a lot of different games. I tend to stick to fighting games most of the time, or action games. But yeah, these are some games that I've either grew up with or really enjoyed, and I like a lot. I'm sure there's some games that I probably missed out that people are like, oh, what about this game or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I probably like it. It's just, I can't think about it at the moment.
Yeah, you're probably a bit more varied than me when it comes to games.
Yeah.
I do play.
Oh, and I wanted to say real quickly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to say real quickly. Nioh 2 is definitely one of my favorite games. Nioh 2, to me, is the most underappreciated game ever. Like, that game is amazing. Like, and to give you an idea, when I joined the team, a lot of people don't know this story, but when I joined the team, they gave me Nioh 1, right? They're like, here's Nioh 1. Check it out, get some history. This is before Nioh 2 was even thought of yet, or wasn't even in part of the thing. And they're like, here's Nioh 1. I had joined the team like a little after like Nioh 1 came out on PC. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll give it a shot or whatever. And I played it like a complete scrub. Like, I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. And I was just kind of going through it, and I was like, oh, and I kept telling myself this when I was playing. I was like, oh, this is not Ninja Gaiden. This is not Ninja Gaiden. It's like, it's not the same game, And I was like, that was my expectation. That was like my bar. Like, if it's not Ninja Gaiden, I don't like it. So I begrudgingly went through the game and beat the game on just the base game. And I was just like, all right, I went through it. I beat the game. I'm done with it or whatever. And I was not like really into the game. And then Nioh 2 was coming around, and that was like the latest project, and I had to be very much aware of where it was going and what people liked about it, right? So then I was like, all right, I really need to, buckle down and understand what this game's all about and really, devote the time, And I played it with a friend as, the demos were coming around, and we kind of got used to it, and he learned some things that I didn't know, and I started like looking at some things, and I started having questions for the team and all that stuff. And lo and behold, after all that understanding and research, I was just like, wow, this game is like amazing. The music is amazing. The hits are amazing. The stances, the weapons, all this stuff is amazing. It's like the story. I'm not like super involved with the story. Like, obviously, it's a lot of like Japanese history and whatnot. But I do appreciate how it comes together. It's a very loose translation of historical events, right? And I like that. And I like the yokai design. The art direction is really good. And I just feel like anybody that may be watching this has never tried Nioh, I think should definitely try the franchise, because it's just Yeah, you got Scampish right there. You got little yokai that are really friendly. And I think it's the franchise is like underappreciated overall. I think it doesn't get the spotlight it deserves. And hopefully with Neo 3 it does. Hopefully with Neo 3 it's welcoming to a lot of more people and people try it out. But I think Neo 2 definitely set the bar so high that whenever I see other games within the same, genre, I'm just like, man, Neo 2 blew that out the water. It's like that's like it's just such a good game. But
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that because I
Oh,
love that game. I
this
have
about
probably
you,
like
man.
maybe 1,000 hours in the game. I don't know how many hours I have, but I have a lot of hours in that game.
Yeah, like the Neo series, I also play. I started like a scrub as well. Like I didn't know shit. Like uh, vast majority of the people that now are like at the top of the game, on Neo 1, Neo 2, like I'm pretty sure most of them also played like scrubs at the start. It is a game that
Yeah.
is so different to anything that came before it in terms of like how it is meant to be played, all the options that it offers, the system that it has. That yeah, like you have to be a genius of understanding like the game at the very beginning to really have like a good non-scrap first playthrough.
True, true, true. Very true. Yeah, yeah. And as you say that, it makes me think about my boss, right? So Yasuda-san, right? So I think about the direction and how the whole thought process, that he went through with the team to create these mechanics, and I'm just like, wow, this is so good. Like, how did you come up with this idea? Like, where did this come from? So it's really cool. It's really cool. So that's why I really enjoy that game.
Yeah, like yeah, it's so crazy. Speaking of like the Neo series, and now Neo 3 is coming out in just a few weeks. Incredible.
Hmm.
Is there any particular feedback that the players have given that has caught your attention in any of the games, like not only just the Neo series, in any of the games that you have been involved?
I think some of the feedback is pretty straightforward sometimes. Sometimes it's like something that you can kind of expect. They'll say like, is there the possibility of a character or can be involved or added, or can I switch to a certain character? Because sometimes there's characters you can't swap out with. And so those are like pretty common things. On top of like just general like bugs, like, oh, I encountered this situation or whatnot. I know there was one that I got from, I think it was from you, but it's like, the ability to like set up the speed run thing or whatever. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
like
yeah,
something
I
that I fed to the
remember
team.
for Wolong. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, it's like
Yeah. So
the in-game timer. It was. Yeah.
yeah, the end game timer. Yeah. So these are things. These are like real things. So anybody that's watching your video here or watching this whole interaction right now, like these are like things that I had discussions where I fed to the team. And those are kind of like things that kind of stand out. Like, oh yeah, that would be an interesting feature to have. Like, why not? Like, how much work would it take to do that? Is it worth it, or we're in
Yeah.
the middle of so many things that we can't do it? If you guys aren't aware, like we're constantly putting out games. We put out games like faster than I've ever seen, honestly.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of games currently in the works.
There are some games that I don't think when I think of Teen Ninja, I don't think of them. But there's also Fatal Frame that's coming out
Yeah,
in nothing. Like, and I know nothing about the series, but yeah, it is also coming out.
yeah, yeah. Fatal Frame is coming out fairly soon, and even with Fatal Frame, like this is recent. This is the first time that Team Ninja officially has been involved with the project. So it'll be our first Fatal Frame um, that we're working on, as well as we're working on Neo and the DLC for Ninja Gaiden 4 as well. So there's a lot of stuff coming up. And but yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of feedback and different items that come up that are usually pretty straightforward. Nothing that generally stands out. Sometimes that is like, it's like, oh wow, that would be a killer thing. Every once in a while there is, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head that comes up to mind that is like, oh yeah, yeah, that would be good. Most of the time though, there are things that what I like about the feedback, what I enjoy about the feedback when the community is giving it to me and sharing it, and you guys are putting it in a nice concise manner. What I like is that when when the team actually gets to it and they see it, I like how the updates kind of slowly but surely get rolled out sometimes, and people can actually see those things in the game now. And again, that's all credit to the community, because the community is making it vocal, right? Like, you guys are sharing, you guys are taking the time and energy to share that information with people like myself, to be able to feed that to the team. And I think that's probably the best part, getting your feedback and seeing it um, reflected on the updates.
Do you have any feedback that you give yourself to the team? Like, I know you said you're more the bridge, but have you ever given like any feedback that comes from you and not necessarily the community?
Oh, okay, yeah, yes. Every now and then I'll flex my position so I can feed them. I can feed them something that I would like. Sometimes I'll be like, listen, guys, I'm asking you. Yeah, every once in a while I'll ask them for something like, hey, is it possible that we could do something like this? I think one of the times was there was this thing. So in Dead or Alive, as an example, in Dead or Alive, I was always like, my costume is that old costume that has this like armor with gold or whatever. And nowadays, nobody sees Hayabusa in Dead or Alive that way. They just see him as the Ninja Gaiden costume, which is all black. And so one of the times was like, it's like, I really would like my costume in there. It'd be nice to have my costume. It's like, it's not in there now, but if we can get it in there, that'd be great. And then they did put it in there in DOA 6, I remember, because it wasn't initially part of the game. So for them to put it in there, it's not, I know it's not just specifically my feedback. I know there's others that want it in there, but I think me being there to be able to tell them like, hey man, put it in there, man, please. Like, I think that would be so cool. They went ahead and took that step. And there's other stuff too. There was a move actually before the game released for DOA 6, I think. I think it was right before the game released. There was a move that I told them, I don't think this move makes a lot of sense. And it was a particular move for Hayabusa specifically, because it was a very old move. And I was just telling them, I was like, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to have this here. It just seems like unnatural. I kept telling him, I was like, I think if we swapped it for this other move, it would make a lot more sense. It wouldn't make him busted or broken or anything like that. It just makes more sense to do this because he had another option. And they were like, oh, okay, cool. And then sure enough, they put the move in the game. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. It came through or whatnot, and that goes for any game. That goes for any game, rather it be before the release or after release. Sometimes I'll just be like, hey, I saw something that I think makes a lot of sense that nobody's talking about, and I think we should make an adjustment here. And that happens sometimes. And again, sometimes that gets adjusted before the game releases, so you guys never even get to see it. And then sometimes it happens, after release. Yeah, but I try not to do that too much. Because it's like, it should be you guys' game, it's like your guys' game, and of course the direction of the director, right? Like, the director has a vision of what he wants to make, right? So I don't want to like make it seem like, oh, you're doing the wrong thing. Like, ultimately, what you want, and if it makes sense for what you're trying to make, great. But also understand that this is what people want as well. So it's a combination. It's always a collaborative effort, even if it may not feel that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're doing like an amazing job for sure. Um, Speaking of the community and yourself and Koei Tecmo in this case, a few months ago on San Francisco, there was an event for Nioh 3, including several content creators from the US, some of which I've been following, like Puffer Llama, for example. Can you tell us about the experience a little bit? Like, how was it?
Yeah, the experience was cool. I mean, it's not the first time we work with content creators and influencers. We've done that with Wolong. We've done that with a couple other games, Ninja Gaiden as well. But being able to be there in person, I can't always be there in person. So being able to be there in person and kind of like talking to them, and some of them I already knew, I've met previously. Some of them were new. So being able to introduce myself and just kind of talk to them and saying hello and everything, and see how they play the game and what their impressions are, is always a good thing. Because you build that relationship. The whole idea is that you want to build that relationship and make them feel, they're part of this whole journey, So the big name influencers that you probably are already familiar with, it's cool to see and talk to them, and talk and see how they like the game, and kind of get their feedback and see how they put their content together, because ultimately that's what they're doing. They're getting a hands-on before anybody else, and they get to make unique content because they're capturing, they're using their capture or whatnot to capture their gameplay so they can post to their channels and their impressions, So it's always cool to see how each one approaches it in their own way. But in this particular situation, it was really cool to see Poofer and Last to Load. So Poofer and Last to Load is much different in the sense that we had an opportunity. Let's put it that way. That we had an opportunity to bring them in, which normally we wouldn't do that. That's very unusual, primarily because of the whole idea is that when you're doing a marketing thing and you're doing like an influencer thing, you're trying to get the biggest people that really love your game and have the widest audience, right? But internally, kind of like how I got involved back then. Internally, it's important to touch on what the community at its roots, what they like. You know what I'm saying? I think there's an opportunity there to make sure that you touch on that. So internally within the team, it was kind of like we want all these major influencers, but we also kind of want somebody that speaks directly to the community as well. You know what I'm saying? We obviously want to grow our audience, and having people with wide audiences helps that. But I think there's a level of importance to have people involved that are direct from that part of the community. So we had an opportunity to do that, and we almost did not have it. So the fact that we were able to get some was always good. And having Poofer and Last to Load and get their point of view and have their videos out there, I think is great. And I think the best thing to do in those situations is to not only watch their videos because it comes directly from you guys, but also to support that, to support that because you want to have more opportunities to bring people like them out there, you know what I'm saying? And you want them to grow and, you want it to be an overall good experience for everybody, right? So I like the fact that they were there. I like the content they put out. It was great to talk to Poofer. It was great to talk to Last Load, and put a face to the name a little bit easier, not just through a camera or webcam or just through a game or whatnot, but to be able to like, hey, this is who I am. This is who you are. Play the game. Do you have any questions? So it was cool. It was cool.
Yeah, definitely. I wish I could have been there, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
Yeah, we're always looking for ways, just so like everybody knows, we're always looking for ways to kind of get more people involved. But sometimes you're just kind of limited on resources. Sometimes you're just trying to make sure other things are getting taken care of. And sometimes having extra influencers is a little hard. It's a little hard to get involved.
But yeah, it's like what I say. I agree completely. Like you not only need to grow outwards, but also you cannot just forget what you already have, like the community that you already have. Like you cannot lose them.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you guys are especially people that stick around for a long time. You guys are the most vocal, right? You guys are the most committed and everything. So there should be some level of acknowledgement, I guess you can say. It's a level of acknowledgement saying like, hey, we got people that are directly from the grassroots community, and we had an opportunity here, at least in North America, for this particular situation, to get them involved.
Yeah. So we're almost done. But before we finish, like, is there anything that you would like to ask me or the community, or in general, from your viewpoint as a community manager or as a master?
Um, I guess for me, I don't really have. I mean, I just want you guys to enjoy the game. Ultimately, enjoy the game. Sharing the information that you feel like is worth sharing about to the team and whatnot. I think the biggest thing is I want you all to grow tremendously on whatever it is you guys are doing within the community on social media. So I know not everybody that plays the game posts on social media. Sometimes you're just on the forums or whatnot, but it would be cool to see more players continue to play the game and grow their presence online. So support each other, I think, is the best thing, because there's many games out there, and like I said earlier, I think Nioh 2 is like the most underappreciated game on there, and I'm not exactly sure. Besides the obvious things with marketing or whatnot, but besides that, how do we prolong that further? And I think the best way to do it is to have the community grow and come together and constantly put more content out. So any content you have, rather it be funny, hardcore, speed runs, head-to-head stuff, I think I think the more you post of that, the better it is, honestly, because that more people will want to get involved. Somebody might see your clip and be like, "Oh, what is that game?" You know, they've never touched the game ever. So like, if you have tutorials, speedruns, whatever it may be, I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, I definitely want to do like a lot of things with Neo 3. I don't know. You don't know how busy I'm gonna be with everything. Like I
Yeah,
can.
yeah. I mean, you just do it when you can. You know, you do it
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
can, and if you can do it, that's great. And then of course, whenever it's like because everybody has to follow certain rules or whatnot. But if it's pretty straightforward stuff, you'll get a share from our stuff. Like officially, you'll get a Team Ninja retweet or something like that. So it's always good to share that stuff, because if we see it and we catch it, we'll take the opportunity to be like, oh, this
yeah.
is a really good video. Let's share that.
Yeah, I remember like the community spotlight that we had for Neo 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my idea. That's my idea.
Yeah.
I
Based.
made that idea. I put it together. I edited it myself. And all that was me. I just got
Yeah.
approval. They like gave me the approval.
Yeah. Go ahead and do it again. I was gonna say.
Yeah, yeah.
So now this will be
Yeah.
like the end of the questions, the end of the interview, and
Yeah.
I'm glad to have you here and make this interview, saving a little bit of your time to do it, and yeah, we couldn't ask for
Yeah,
a
no, thank you for
better
having me.
community manager.
Oh no, man, I'm glad. I'm happy to be here. I'm very fortunate to be here. You guys put me here. Honestly, that's kind of how it worked. People stood up for me, and that's the reason I'm here. And I'm sure if there's a time where I don't, you guys will make it very clear, and I'll disappear. But in the meantime, I'm happy to be here and happy to help out. So I'm glad I could make it here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Mhm.